Welcome to the NEC Song Lab. I'm Cameron Stowe, and this is the sixth concert in this season's Liederabend series at the New England Conservatory. While this is the final Liederabend of the season, this is also a beginning. I mean that this is the first large-scale collaboration between NEC's departments of voice and collaborative piano and the Department of Composition. The chair of the composition department, Michael Gandolfi, and I have been wanting to do something like this for quite some time. And we decided a few months ago, why let a global pandemic get in our way? So, after our wonderful colleagues Lisa Safer and Tanya Bleich agreed to join us in leading the project, we set things in motion. First, we invited 10 student composers from NEC to join the project, and we paired each of them with one singer and one pianist from NEC's Song Lab. Together in the groups of three, they discussed poetry, they chose a poem, and then set to work to create a brand new song. The composers had the chance to get to know the personalities and unique abilities of the performers for whom they were writing, and the performers were able to get to know the particular point of view of their composers and any details about the way they wanted their music to be performed. For several weeks then, they wrote and workshopped and revised, and the result are the 10 songs that you are about to hear that are being aired for the first time in public right now. One personal note, I will add that being able to watch this project unfold over the past few months has been one of the most rewarding experiences I've had during my time here at NEC. The kinds of intimate collaboration and artistic experimenting that I've witnessed between some of these performers and composers has been quite humbling and moving and very inspiring. On behalf of Michael Gandolfi, Lisa Safer, Tanya Bleich, and myself, I want to thank these composers and performers for all of their hard work, and to the faculty members from voice and composition who have supported this project and worked with these students along the way. We hope you enjoy these 10 performance premieres.
I chose to set I Felt a Funeral in My Brain, written by the famous American poet Emily Dickinson. The poem describes a dark and trembling fantasy of attending one's own funeral in a heavy and helpless atmosphere where one can do nothing but watch and feel. The music tries to embrace a bigger picture of the universal experience of human loss. We feel weak and powerless in that loss, yet at the same time we're also surrounded by a deep tenderness. I would like to thank Emma and Kyung-ah for being very supportive and performing my piece beautifully. Thank you, and please enjoy.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jiaqi Wang, a third-year NEC undergraduate composer. I was very moved by Yeats' poem, The Roads in the Deeps of His Heart. He presents images of a bleak and broken world in the first two stanzas and expresses desire to refashion this world for a love he keeps deep in his heart. I responded to the narrator's anxiety in the music with more density in the piano and vocal writing. I used clusters and interlocking rhythmic gestures in the piano part, and extreme registers for both voice and piano. A piano interlude gradually introduces more transparency in the harmonic language and more unity in the textures as the poet begins to reshape his inner world to greater optimism in the final two verses. In the end, I used a very pure and resonant E-flat major chord to mark a clear departure from the opening D minor. And this also illustrates the possibilities of the poet's dreams that blossom as the roads in the deeps of his heart. I want to thank my incredible singer Philip and amazing pianist Gaia for making such an excellent recording. I hope you enjoy listening to The Roads in the Deeps of His Heart.
Hello all, I'm Brooks Clark, a first-year master's student at NEC, and I'm excited to present to you my setting of the first two segments of Edgar Allan Poe's Telltale Heart. In preparation for this project, I wanted to select a text from an American author from Boston, and I also wanted a text that was not a poem. I'm a lifelong fan of the works of Poe, and I thought this short story would function perfectly if treated in separate musical movements, each detailing moments from the story. My initial compositional approach was to try to set the entire long text of the story in a condensed way, an approach that would mirror mental illness and paranoia through the overwhelming challenges presented to the performers. But as I worked with Michaela and Han Zheng and understood their individual talents, the composition underwent several revisions. As I was not setting a poem, we had to properly tackle the daunting task of setting the text of a short story and bringing the selected sections of text to life. I grew to love the interpretations of the music that my performers had given, and I adjusted the score throughout this process as our collaboration started to form a piece that I really think captures the essence of this frightening story.
When I was invited into this collaboration, I already had in mind Emma Lazarus' famous poem on the Statue of Liberty, particularly its lesser-known first and second stanzas. Lazarus' sonnet, in the radical tradition of the artist who calls upon the existing world to change for the better by depicting a brave and idealized alternative, seemed timely. But on reflection, migration, either by choice or forced by the unimaginable, is both ancient and always urgent. The synthesis with H.D.'s Hermes of the Ways was inspired by a conversation with my colleague Sam, who's singing the song, and his interest in the Imagist poets. A dispassionate evocation of uncaring ocean and empire, cruel, fading empire, rhymes with Lazarus's admonition to the USA to be a beacon of light instead of casting a death shadow like the brazen Colossus of Rhodes. The traveler always needs mercy and protection. I'm humbled by Sam and Cynthia's musicianship and grateful for the life they've given to my music. I hope this song as well has something to say this year, during which migrants impelled by threat of harm, or climate emergency, or economic precariousness are often bearing the worst of the pandemic as well.
Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name Mother of Exiles. Over the leagues of it, the wind. I know him, Hermes of the triple pathways who awaiteth. More than the many-fold ways of the sea. Welcoming wayfarers, he whom the sea orchard shelters from the west.
I composed this piece based on a text by a poet named Catherine Howard Mahan. I had the pleasure when I was back in my undergrad of working with her in 2 classes. It turns out her father actually was a composer as well, so she allowed me to use her entire catalog of texts whenever I wanted. So it's actually quite nice for me. I can set whatever I want when I want. This poem is Sleeping with the Dead. It was chosen in collaboration with Yunqi and Maria Li, who are going to be performing this piece. It talks about some of our a little more unusual practices when we're dealing with our dead, particularly in regards to how we take their ashes and put them in urns on old pianos draped with tapestry fringe, and also believe that our dead, in some manner, lord over us and believe that we should be serving them constantly. I know it's a little dark, but it's actually kind of funny. The setting is actually based quite a lot on Carl Zeiss' Serenity, particularly its more staid piano texture and not particularly active vocal line that supports the piano texture. I hope you enjoy.
A large group of people stage a protest, demanding equal rights and representation in government. Militarized police charge in, causing hundreds of injuries. I'm talking, of course, about the Peterloo Massacre, St. Peter's Field, Manchester, England, August 1819. As soon as the poet Percy Bysshe Shelley, then living in Italy, hears about the massacre, he writes a poem. That poem is The Mask of Anarchy. The poem opens with a highly metaphorical account of a violent mob rampaging across the land to eventually conquer London, the nation's capital. This highly metaphorical mob is led by very real government officials, who are directly named in the poem and compared to murder, fraud, and hypocrisy. The mob is eventually halted by the personification of hope, who urges the common people to stand against the forces of institutional corruption and to meet armed soldiers with nonviolent resistance. Shelley's poem went unpublished for over a decade after its writing, because the attacks on sitting heads of government would land anyone who dared to publish it in serious legal trouble. In my setting, I've chosen to sacrifice some of the original text and add in some new material in order to try to restore the spirit of Shelley's explicit confrontation of contemporary events. To this end, I've made suggestions in the score as to which word substitutions I would personally make, but have left the exact choices open to the performer's discretion to deal with how they wish. All the words you'll hear are Shelley's, except for the words that are not. Those words are written in brackets.
Human hearts to chew. Clothed in arms like blood and flame, each waving a bloody sword, tearing up and trampling down, till they came to the Capitol, crying, "Thou art King and God and Lord, to thee we bow, just say the word." Tearing up and trampling down, till they came to the Capitol. And then the elephant bowed and grinned to everyone, as well as if his disinformation had cost 581,000 to the nation. They are dying whilst I speak. Rise like lions out of slumber, in unvanquishable number. Shake your chains to earth like you, which in sleep had fallen on you. Ye are many, they are few. They are few. They are few. Yet you for them are made to work and have such pay as just keeps life from day to day. Your will bent for the nourishment to be all that they made of ye. Savage men or wild beasts would not endure as ye do, but such ills they never knew. Ye who suffer woes untold, or to feel or to behold, your lost country bought and sold with a price of blood and gold. Rise like
Hi, this is Flora. The Ogura 100 poets, often called Jiaqi Wang, which means 100 poets, one poem each, was completed during the Kamakura period by Fujiwara no Teika. He selected one poem from 100 of the best Japanese poets and compiled them in chronological order. Jiaqi Wang was also adopted by a traditional Japanese card game called karuta. And whenever someone plays this game, a card reader will sing the opening poem, "Now the Flower Blooms," to announce the start of the game. It sounds something like this. Nani wa zu ni sakuya kono hana fuyu gomori Ima wo harupe to sakuya kono hana. And so the opening melody of my song uses the exact same melody as the song that the card reader sings. And in fact, the whole piece is a variation based on that melody. And when we were discussing various poetry options, Ali and I both realized that we were very interested in Japanese culture, so we decided on this poem. And I want to take this chance to thank Ali and Cynthia for putting the work together, and I hope you'll enjoy the song.
Nani wa zu ni
I'm Yunqi. Space is inspired by William Carroll's A Poetry in Grace, a beautiful poem full of images and colors. A Poetry in Grace contains 3 stanzas that progressively explore questioning, struggling, and releasing. Space has 3 sections that corresponds with the poetic stanzas and is written in a great tone, reflected in the use of dissonance. My main theme in Space focuses on a dialogue between the self and the heart. The narrator is painfully fighting to find a way forward and demonstrate that in the music in the way the voice struggles with the prosody and in the circular patterns of the piano. Finally, the piano accelerates and drives the self to confine its heart. In the end, the narrator makes peace with his heart and Space closes in a major third, suggesting a new way forward in the light of self-growth.
ankles move, move, move. Laboriously on, where it is level and undisturbed by colors.
Hi, my name is Marie Carroll, and for my piece I choose to use fragments from a Neruda poem because I love how his work evokes vivid imagery and complex emotions. Para tu me oigas has a circular structure and a few repeated lines, which I decided to lean into. I was inspired by the harshness of pansori, or Korean opera, and how the unique ornamentation helps to create intensity. In my piece, I notated specific types of vibrato and expressions derived from pansori techniques in order to bring out the speaker's overpowering emotions. For the piano part, I wanted to create a unique, haunting, and ethereal backdrop that can quickly become gritty and tumultuous. I found that mallets encompass both textures. Continuous soft rolls create an eerie resonant sound, while striking and scraping the strings produces a jarring noise. I also used the sostenuto pedal in combination with playing inside the piano so that certain strings would resonate while the others would create a muted, unpitched sound. Thank you to Guyang and Angela for exploring these sounds with me.
Since There's No Escape is a sonnet written by American poet Sarah T. Stowe with a theme of life and death. In the poem, the author expresses her longing for life in the face of her own inevitable death, the beauty of Earth, and the struggle of leaving it behind, and at last finds the strength to cherish the short but resplendent life. In the music, I'd applied a chromatic descending fourth motive that relates to death and mortality. The second section expresses the struggle at the realization of mortality. Then the music modulates into a more serene state to depict the tranquility in the poem's middle section. Toward the end, there's a long building up of the pedal and vertical chord figurations that resembles the inner strength and transcendence in the face of death. However, after all this, the piece ends with prolonged suspended chords, with the voice backing off into a soft and airy sound. This marks a final turnaround, with a gleam of uncertainty, questioning about one's ultimate fate. My wonderful concertina Lucas Cora has both strong high and low ranges, which gave me a lot of freedom on composing the voice parts. Also, the great collaborative skills from pianist Kun Ali made all the transitions and shifting of sonorities in the piece possible. My great thanks to them for the work and dedication.
Since the